Hello, this is Meghnad and you're watching Sansad Watch, where we tell you what the leaders you elected have been doing for you. In the last episode, I told you about the causes of inflation and played with graphs a little bit to tell you sad truths. But since then, it just got sadder.
Inflation is soaring across the world on the back of global food and fuel price hikes
of 14.55% in March against 13.11% in February.
Rising crude oil prices and increase in the price of basic metals has led to this surge.
Wholesale price inflation has hit a 30-year high of almost 13%. The last time this happened was in 1992. I was 3 years old. I have been trying to figure out in my head exactly how much inflation has increased since my childhood. Remember these? Pepsi ice sticks. In the early 2000s, I used to buy 4 of these for 1 rupee. Because technically, it's just water, some food coloring and artificial flavoring put into a plastic. I wasn't sure if these are available in the open market, so I asked on Twitter, and these are the responses I got. Interesting. Some said that these are now for 5 rupees, some said 7 rupees, some said 20. What do you think though? Do you still get these in the market around you, and how much do they cost? Leave a comment below. So, last time we told you about 4 reasons why inflation happens and 5 things the government is doing about it. If you haven't seen it, you should see it because this is like a part 2 of that. So the truth is the government can only do so much about inflation. They can increase and reduce taxes on specific goods, they can make stockpiles to prevent shocks, and they can give subsidies and welfare on basic needs for the poor. But the real institution we should look out for controlling inflation is the Reserve Bank of India, or RBI. We should ask questions to this guy, the governor of RBI, Shaktikanta Das. If you zoom in closely into this picture, you will see that his unibrow is matching the income increase graph in the past 3 years. Sorry, my brain is a little muddled. I'm seeing graphs everywhere. Guys, a fair warning, this episode is going to be kafi intense and complicated, so stick with me a little bit. Let's talk about how the RBI can help control inflation. It can do 2 things. 1, it can increase or decrease the supply of money. And 2, it can increase or decrease the interest rate at which banks borrow money. Both of these are interconnected to inflation. You see, in an economy, when the supply of money in a society increases, then people start spending more on stuff. People have an easier time getting loans and companies can get financed. Even governments get a hold of more money to spend on public. But there is a problem. If there is more supply of money in the market, the currency devalues and things start getting a little bit more expensive. Inflation happens. And when inflation happens, then the central bank has to take a call on whether they should limit the supply of money. The first thing they can do is stop printing more money. But RBI has been doing the opposite for the last 5 years. Since 2017, the currency in circulation has gone up from 18.2 lakh crore to 29.8 lakh crore. That's a straight up 63% increase. Reports indicate that due to the pandemic, a lot of people have decided to store more physical money in their house. So now there is just a lot of money sloshing around. But wait, physical money is not the only thing that the central bank creates. It also creates debt. A bank can give out loans. There is something called the cash reserve ratio, or CRR. What that means is that a bank has to keep a percentage of deposits as reserves before it gives out loans. Right now it's at 4%. So if you deposit 100 rupees in a bank, the bank has to keep 4 rupees with the RBI, and then it can give out a loan of 100 rupees. So technically they can give out a loan of 96 rupees. Anything above the 4% deposits is bank created money in the form of debt. So if there is more physical money in circulation, people deposit it in banks, which lets the banks create more money which they can give out as loans. Which brings us to the second way in which the RBI can control flow of money: interest rate. The way they do this is by tinkering with something called a repo rate. A repo rate is the interest rate at which a bank borrows money from the RBI. If there is a shortage of funds, a bank can go to the RBI and borrow money according to the repo rate, which is to be paid back with interest. This cascades down to you, the customer. Here is how it works. So this is you. What a handsome fellow. You deposit some money at the rate of 3% into a bank. Okay, this is a bank, not a mandir, it's a bank. Now you have deposited money into this bank. Now this bank will deposit money with the RBI, which is a bigger bank. Again, not a mandir, this is the RBI. Now I come along. Of course I have curls, I miss my curls. And I want to buy a car. Okay, this is a car, not a UFO. I want to buy a car. Now I will take a loan from the bank at the rate of 4% interest. And the bank will take a loan from the RBI for a 3% interest. Now this is the repo rate. And this is the reverse repo rate, RRR. Yeah, the rate, not the movie. And there is a difference of 1% between each of them. That is where the banks make the profits. And to control inflation, the RBI tinkers with these rates. Terrible drawing, Meghnad, but still, you get the idea. The reason why I told you all of this with this bad drawing is because adjusting these rates is how the central bank plays around with the supply of money. If they want more money in the market, they reduce the repo rate, which makes borrowing money cheaper and floods the market with funds. If they want less money in the market, they raise the rate, which makes borrowing more expensive, which reduces the funds that come into the market. Increasing money in the market means more inflation. Reducing money in the market means less inflation. Simple. So with one giant swoop, the central bank can technically control price rise. But are they? Here's what is happening right now. Removing my beautiful art. This is inflation, the consumer price index. In 2014, it was a little bit above 8%. Then it came down, and then it spiked again in October 2019, just around the time the pandemic started. Then it went on for a while, and then it came down. Now, in February 2022, we are here. Now let's put the repo rate on top of it. This is the repo rate which the RBI has changed. In 2014, it was at 8%. Then it came down, and around the time we reached 2019, when the inflation starts spiking, it was at 5%. And then, since then, it has been going down at 4%. And now it's stable. You know where the inflation is right now? It's right here. So the chart will go up like this. Now you can see the correlation between the repo rate and inflation. Here's the thing. Every year, the RBI has to set an inflation target. They have to strive to keep the inflation around 4%, but definitely below 6%. The law says that if the RBI does not meet the inflation target, then they have to give a report to the central government explaining why they failed, what are they doing to fix it, and a timeline as to when it will be brought under control. This is done to increase public faith in the RBI and our currency at large. But we live in New India, so RBI has not bothered to do that. Between January and September 2020, Shaktikanta Unibrow Das did not manage to keep the inflation target below the limit. And they did not bother giving a report to the government about why they failed. I mean, if nobody's watching you, why bother, right? Sansad Watch. So right now, inflation is going nuts and the RBI has decided to just let it be and not change the rates. Which brings us to our final chapter, the monetary policy. A monetary policy is a set of actions that the central bank can take to course correct the economy by changing the rates and money supply. The goal is to keep unemployment low, keep inflation under control, and ensure sustainable GDP growth. Every year, the Monetary Policy Committee, headed by RBI Governor, meets to take these actions. The latest one happened in the beginning of April this year. In that, the RBI projected that our GDP growth is going to be 7.2% and inflation rate might hit 5.7%. The previous estimate for inflation was 4.5%. So you can see how the RBI is also kind of getting worried about inflation. But for the 11th straight meeting, the RBI did not change the repo rate of 4%. Now, in the last episode, I told you about how inflation is not just an India problem, it's a world problem. And central banks across the world are taking their own monetary policy decisions in response. In March, the Federal Reserve of the USA raised rates for the first time in 3 years to 0.25%. They plan to gradually raise it to 2% by the end of 2023. Bank of England has raised it to 0.75%. Bank of Brazil has raised it from 10.7% to 11.7%. Bank of Mexico has had its 7th straight increase, ending up at 6.5%. Bank of South Africa has raised it for the 3rd time to end up at 4%. Bank of Russia, oh mother Russia, they have gone insane with war and with interest rates. They have raised their rates from 9.5% to a crazy 20%. 20%! So compared to all of these central banks, our RBI seems to be quite chill. They haven't increased rates, but they keep increasing their inflation estimates. What is our man Shaktikanta seeing that these other banks aren't? What is happening here? Now, it's really hard to figure out what the RBI is thinking because, well, when you try, you get stuff like this.
Bond yield went to 7%, and then I guess on hearing about
The HTM limit increase, it's cooled down a bit to 6.98, 6.99. Your take overall?
Even if you look at it, when they moved to VRRR, the overnight rate was supposed to be over around 375, 380, but because of this technical issues, it was coming down to 340, 345. So I think now 380, 385, 380 is what the rate is.
Which they've priced it at 3.75 overnight. And this is with reference to the repo rate, which they still treat as their policy rate. So 3.75, 25 basis point below the repo rate. And they've used MSF at the upper end of the corridor as being, something which is available at demand.
Now you know why I see graphs everywhere, including on that face. Here's what the RBI has said. Okay, this is the governor's statement from April 8, 2022. Here is what it says. Since the MPC's last meeting in early February 2022, the expected positive benefits from the ebbing Omicron wave have been offset by a sharp escalation in geopolitical tensions. This has significantly changed the external and domestic landscape. Concerns over protracted supply disruptions have rattled global commodity and financial markets. Given the significant share of the two economies engaged in war in global production and exports of key commodities like oil, natural gas, etc. It further says, inflation is now projected to be higher and growth lower than the assessment in February. Economic activity, although recovering, is barely above its pre-pandemic levels. Against this backdrop, the MPC has decided to retain the repo rate at 4%. It also decided to remain accommodative while focusing on withdrawal of accommodation to ensure that inflation remains within the target going forward while supporting growth. Accommodative while focusing on the withdrawal of accommodation. Okay, I need to decipher this and tell you what it really means. Let's do it again. So, the RBI is basically saying, well, kya hai na, we thought that Omicron wave has gone and now people will get out and buy things. But then, war happened. Okay, war happened in Ukraine and screwed up everything. Supply chains got wrecked and exports got bungled. Financial markets were also in a problem. So, what we have decided is that we are going to keep the rate unchanged so that people can continue to get more loans and spend more in the market, and hopefully we will get through this shit and grow our economy again. We are keeping the repo rate at 4%, okay? Economic activity might happen, okay? इन्फ्लेशन क्या करेंगे, बट गोइंग फॉरवर्ड लेट्स ट्राई आवर बेस्ट. Yes. Thank you, Shaktikanta. Fingers crossed. So yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that our central bank is doing the right thing and the government is also keeping a watch while they do their thing. And now it's time for Know Your Neta. Today we are looking at the Bengali actor, producer, singer and film writer who recently also became a politician, Mr. Deepak Adhikari, also known as Dev. Dev is a Trinamool Congress member representing the Ghotol constituency in West Bengal. Legend has it that Dev's father used to have a catering business serving food on movie sets. Dev claims that while helping out his father, he served food to none other than Shah Rukh Khan when Yes Boss was being filmed. Dev went on to do his acting course at Kishore Namit Kapoor Acting Academy in Mumbai and made his acting debut in 2005. He delivered a few hits and became one of the highest paid Bengali actors. Dev is also the main coach and judge of Dance Bangla Dance. In 2014, just like many of his other Bengali co-stars, Dev ventured into politics. He contested and won from the Ghotol seat for 2 terms in 2014 and 2019. Unlike his movie career though, Dev's parliamentary performance is uninspiring. Dev had the lowest attendance in the 16th Lok Sabha and gave his first speech in the Lok Sabha 2 years after getting elected. Records say that Dev has utilized only 70% of his MPLAD funds. In the 17th Lok Sabha, Dev has an attendance of 12%, has participated in 1 debate and has asked 45 questions to the government. Now, some controversies. Right before the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, a Bengali tabloid asked Dev if he was enjoying the attention elections were bringing him. He replied saying joining election fray is like getting raped. You can either enjoy it or shout. Not cool, man. After he faced some outrage and demands for the withdrawal of his nomination, he apologized. Apart from this, Dev was recently summoned by the CBI for his role in a cattle smuggling racket operating along the India-Bangladesh border in West Bengal. His party workers are calling the interrogation an intimidation tactic by the central government. Dev is also known for being a generous person. During the second COVID wave, Dev converted his office into an isolation ward for patients suffering from the disease. And during the Russia-Ukraine invasion, Dev helped nearly 77 stranded students from West Bengal return home from Moscow. Is this Sonu Sood effect? That's all I have for you in this week's Sansad Watch. It's super important that we keep a watch on what the RBI will do. But before we do that, you and your family and friends need to understand what the RBI even does. So share this episode because remember, if you want to make Parliament great again, you need to watch it first. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Sansad Watch, guys. I've been reading your comments very keenly and I'm very happy that you like this graphic segment. We are trying to do more. We are trying to bring in more formats and do some more fun things. If you have any suggestions for us, please leave them in the comments below. And also, please don't forget to tell me about the price of Pepsi in your neighborhood. I'm genuinely curious. Also, don't forget to subscribe to News Laundry. This takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of resources. So, one subscription from you can actually sponsor this graphics ka segment. Okay, maybe the printouts, I guess. But please keep supporting us, keep subscribing to News Laundry and pay to keep news free.
The subscription model is something that keeps News Laundry afloat, but we need hundreds of thousands of people to completely transform the news ecosystem. So you pay for news, so it serves you. So click on the link with this video, subscribe to News Laundry and pay to keep news free और गर्व से कहो मेरे खर्च पर आज़ाद है खबरें.